I watched Jill's, so...
Ish.
She
has no idea what's coming, though, and that's the fun part about this.
It's a good time. So you get to watch my, thinking.
Want to watch a lawyer squirm? Do's and don'ts. Springs publicly ask legal advice questions on experts in their field. So we got to get this
work.
You ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So we have to welcome everybody to... Oh, that was a good one. Another episode of Do's and Don'ts.
Do's and don'ts.
Today, I'm joined by Meggan Guns, who is currently a Assistant Polk County Attorney.
Correct.
Has previously been an Assistant Dallas County Attorney.
Yep, for about 7 years.
7 years. And is now also running for the County Attorney in Dallas County.
That is correct.
Okay. There we go. See?
Look at. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, you show up. We'll pimp this. Now, before we get going, though, we have to do a couple of very important disclaimers.
Yes, please.
We haven't dropped it yet, but the next episode of Law Splaining that drops before we record this is talking about government entities and social media and liability.
Oh, yes.
It's kind of interesting. Not to brag.
I'm sure it will be great.
Yes. So before we go, what you say, what you do, the opinions and viewpoints expressed in this podcast are those of you and you only, individually.
Just me.
They are not applicable to Polk County Attorney's Office?
Nope.
Dallas County Attorney's Office?
Nope.
Any government entity?
Nope. Not Polk County, Dallas County, none of them.
State of Iowa, nobody. It's Meggan Guns, the natural human being, citizen of the United States of America.
Absolutely, with a couple years in a courtroom.
How many?
Total of 14 years, I think. 15 now. 15 years. I did a year of private practice.
Good work.
Family law. Then after the year of family law, decided to move into prosecution, and I went into the Dallas County Attorney's Office, 7 years there. And then in fall of 2017 is when I went to the Polk County Attorney's Office. So I was in drug and gang unit there, and then currently I'm in the Major Offense Bureau. So that covers mainly felony offenses, crimes against children, sex crimes, homicides, fun stuff.
Juicy stuff.
There's some details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't have to get any details in this.
Okay.
We'll spare the viewers and listeners. Now, you are running for county attorney in Dallas County.
That is correct.
In the general election, on which side of the ballot?
I am on the Democratic ticket.
Okay. And, where can people learn more about, I'm checking your box. We got to rephrase that. I'm checking the box next to your name. Unedited. This is raw.
This is raw, and that was real raw.
That was bad.
Boy,
yep.
I have so many puns running through my head right now, but I'm just going to let them go. I'm going to let them go. We're just going to...
This has been a long
You know what? How about I answer the question I think you were answering?
Please.
People can go to my website, gunsforcountyattorney.com. It is GUNS for countyattorney.com.
Some people have asked, they're like, who's this person? Who's the guns person?
Yeah, the super pro Second Amendment person, right? Absolutely. I've gotten some really interesting, they're great. They're just citizens who want to reach out, and especially, with events in Dallas County earlier this year, they're very anti-gun, and I just say common misconception, that's my last name. Yeah. So
the anti-gun, or are they pro-gun safety?
I think most people are pro-gun safety, the ones that I've received. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So the way this works, do's and don'ts, is we...
Also, disclaimer, I am drinking an NA. I got some stuff I got to do tonight. I appreciated the option, but...
You're a good public servant. We appreciate
doing what I got to do.
We won't judge you this time.
Look, I would love to imbibe, but duty calls.
Fair.
Okay.
Now, on to do's and don'ts.
Okay. Hit me with
the
it.
whole point, you have no idea what's coming.
I don't.
You haven't peeked.
Nope. And these guys saw people that were in here helping. They saw I didn't
So
peek.
what we do is we look on the World Wide Web and find some of the craziest, more outrageous requests for legal advice that are applicable.
But there's some really good ones out there.
There are some dandies. I am not as skilled as those who came before me on this segment in finding the best.
Okay.
But I think I have two. I have this one. We usually start a little easy on you.
Give me a softball.
Give you a softball,
Okay.
something to talk about, and then we usually crank it up a bit.
Okay.
So this is the softball.
Okay.
All right. It says, and I really like this one because there's substance here.
Okay.
Okay?
Think that
As
through
somebody
here.
who's running for the head honcho county attorney in Dallas County,
Pressure.
question. Do prosecutors take office finances into account when deciding how to proceed with cases? Do they basically have unlimited funds? That's the heading.
Okay.
So the question. So let's say the police arrest a bunch of people and the DA's office charges them with crimes. Prosecutor's office. The DA's office can probably but not definitely secure guilty verdicts for those cases if taken to trial. Trials take a lot of money in the form of all the salaries that have to be paid compared to a far cheaper plea bargain. In these cases, does the DA's office take into account how much money trials would cost when deciding to on plea offers? Like, I can't take this case to trial and probably get a guilty verdict, or I can, but the trial would use up a lot of time and thus salaries to prepare and try. So I will offer the defendant a plea on less serious charges to dispose of this case.
Okay.
This is a common question from the defense perspective. Like, well, they don't want to spend the money to try this case.
So what a lot of people don't realize is we're salaried. So I get paid the same amount whether I am sitting in my office answering emails, preparing forms, or whether I'm in a courtroom doing a trial. So that direct cost for my salary, not going to change one bit.
Doesn't change the scale either way.
Nope, that's not going to change things either way. But we do understand that there are costs associated, for example, with experts. There are costs associated. There are things that we will take into account, time on some people's, and it will always depend.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we're going to look at, can the plea agreement meet the goals of the judicial system, okay? And I would hope most prosecutors are taking into account what the twin goals of sentencing are, right?
Which are?
The twin goals of sentencing and of the criminal justice system. Those are rehabilitation of the defendant and protection of the community.
Good goals.
Good goals, okay? So those are the two things that the courts can look at. So really your prosecutor should be looking at those things as well. If that's what the court's looking at, can we accomplish those things with a certain plea agreement? Is the victim, the victim we don't represent. So that's a common misconception for a lot of people. We don't actually we don't represent that victim, but they do have rights to at least be told about a plea agreement. If they are a registered victim, they have the right to be told about it. They have the right to give a victim impact statement. Those are always fun, especially when we're reading a victim impact statement where they're like ticked off about the agreement we came to. And I get to read a statement about how mad they are and how horrible of a job I did.
Yeah, how terrible of a prosecutor you are.
And I made this garbage deal and I'm giving the person a slap on the wrist. And, so those things are going to be taken into account. Can we do this without having to do a trial? And another important thing for us is, what is the defendant taking responsibility for? Are they taking responsibility for what they did? That's going to go a long way in the rehabilitation of a defendant. So sometimes a plea agreement means a lot if that person can admit that they did something wrong. They can move forward. We can rehabilitate them easier. The docket that I've been on in the last 3 to 4 years is a docket that goes to trial a lot.
You do, and a lot of it is just the nature of the offenses.
Yep.
They're mandatory prison. If you're convicted, you can't move, they can't move.
Yep.
That's what juries are for.
Yeah. And so those are cases where you're just going to try it. We don't have an unlimited budget. To answer the part of that, we do not have an unlimited budget. We have a budget that is set by Board of Supervisors. We do a budgeting process just like every other governmental entity. We have to get a budget set. There is a certain amount that is set for, experts, for travel, for all of those things. There's line items in our budget. Now, I have not had a lot of times where I have been told no on an expert.
And I was going to say, I think one big misconception that a lot of people have is this overwhelming thought of the costs associated with trial, especially from a prosecutorial side. Defense side is different because we don't have people that work for us and are paid salaries by the government to investigate the crimes or to investigate the offenses. But law enforcement is already paid.
They've been paid, and if they have to do overtime to do trial, that's not out of my budget. That's out of the police department's budget.
Forensic people already paid through a different salary. Different entities.
Different governmental state.
Correct.
Yeah. So most of the people we're going to be using as witnesses are already paid and not an additional cost to us.
You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that calculation, get the spreadsheet out on that.
Not generally, no.
Yeah. There are some cases where if you're retaining a special expert, expertise, then you have to do it. But by and large, the majority of prosecutions don't involve a lot of outside expense.
No. I mean, the ones we might see, for example, in child death cases, we will frequently retain somebody who has a fellowship in child abuse and neglect to look at medical records, to look, is this a criminal trauma type case or is this not that?
Okay.
But those are a lot of times expenses that we're going to have already incurred because we want to know what that answer is before we even charge.
Yeah, you're not going to just run off and charge and then retain somebody to say, hey, what is this?
Yeah, so
hopefully.
Those are, you'd hope. So
Meggan Guns for county attorney will not do that.
I want to be a good, steward of your financial tax dollars. So
investigate appropriately first.
Yes. And then we're not going to charge a case that, the evidence isn't going to support. And if the experts are saying, that's not what you think it is, I would rather know that before I charge the case.
100%.
So
100%. So if we're summing this up into our world famous now, do's and don'ts.
Okay.
If you say, what is a do or two about this question?
Do remember that most of these jobs are salaried. And if you are the defendant, do not, I guess, can I go into a don't?
Do a don't.
Okay. If you're the defendant, don't think that the cost of prosecution is going to make the prosecution not try the case.
I would 1,000% agree with that because from the defense perspective as well, if the case warrants it, if it's a big enough deal for a prosecutor's office, I don't care if we're down in Lamoni or out in Decatur County or one of those other counties, you're getting prosecuted.
Yeah, it's going to get tried.
And they're going to do what they can with the resources they have. They're not going to fly people in from California as experts, but they're going to put a case on and it's going to go to trial and the jury's going to make a determination. So don't think that you are going to get given some softball resolution on a case simply because they're afraid to spend money to prosecute.
Yeah, and also remember, let's phrase it that way.
Yes,
we're in that segment, so I got to phrase it correctly. Do remember, most prosecutors' offices have more than one prosecutor, so they can get coverage pretty easy for the rest of the stuff. So putting somebody in trial, there's still going to be somebody, or we can always find, in the state of Iowa, we have a pretty good working relationship with our prosecutors' offices. So even a smaller one can find coverage from a neighboring county to come in and cover a court service day if they have trial going on.
They can get help.
They can get help.
Do understand that there's another team out there.
There is a good team in place, good backup team. So
awesome. Well, we survived the first segment, the softball segment.
Okay.
We will be back with another one shortly, but I appreciate your time. That was a fantastic start to the do's and don'ts.
Boom.
Boom.